Number 10 finally last night admitting that comments reportedly made, by a major Tory donor were racist and wrong.
Well, Frank Hester, who has donated £10 million to the Conservatives over the past year, is alleged to have said seeing Diane Abbott made him want to hate all black women and that the MP should be shot. He has apologised.
Obviously, you bear in mind what's happened to other politicians.
Yep.
That Derek Amos, and you think about that
David Amos.
David Amos and Joe Cox as well. Still with us, talkTV reporter Victoria Nis. That's not altogether right, because she hasn't been here for an hour. We're also joined by former Conservative advisor, a man who could put a smile on anybody's face, Charlie Rowley. Good morning. The Dream Team are in. Can we just have some facts, Vic, to start with you? Because Kemi Badenoch came out yesterday, was quite forceful, and suddenly Rishi Sunak follows suit.
Yeah, exactly. I think for Rishi Sunak, the pressure obviously was building all day yesterday, and the fact that he did not come out and say and even address the comments, let alone call them racism. Obviously, Kemi Badenoch, as you say, this is a woman who stood up in front of the Conservative Party last year and said that Britain was the best country to be black in. And then for this scandal, this race row to engulf the Tory party this week, it wasn't a good look for the Prime Minister. His spokesperson then came out late last night and finally called it racist and wrong. And as we head into today, and obviously PMQs at 12 o'clock, he would have been under immense pressure if he hadn't have come out and condemned it. Now, of course, as you say, the questions will turn to that £10 million, whether the Tory party should return that money, and that is something which he will undoubtedly get asked upon midday.
Charlie, the Labour Party has often been accused of having an anti-Semitism problem. Do you think that the Tory party has got a racism problem?
No, I don't. That's not been my view. That's not been my experience within the Tory party. I think the difficulty yesterday was that the comments were unverified up until, and I think they still are unverified. Now, that's not to say that they've been denied. I think people have contacted Mr Hester and he hasn't denied them, and he's obviously apologised, so therefore admitting those comments took place. But I think whether, at the time, whether they were racist, whether they're not, did they happen, did they not, there was a bit of confusion yesterday morning. But when you have Kwasi Kwarteng, obviously a black former Chancellor of the Exchequer in the Conservative Party, when you've got Kemi Badenoch calling these comments racist, which they were, which they are totally unacceptable.
And
They're
the first
totally
British Asian
deplorable.
Prime Minister couldn't see that until two of his cabinet ministers, who happened to be black, came out and said it.
Well, he, I think, described them as unacceptable, and obviously had spokespersons sort of...
God, the optics.
But you're absolutely right. You've got to call it out for what it is when you see it, whatever the political party.
I don't think he has...
racist.
This is my argument about Sunak. I don't think he has that... I don't think he's a conviction politician. I don't think he's somebody who ever goes out on a whim. I think it's all about focus groups and what... Kemi Badenoch came out and called it what it was. I don't like Diane Abbott in any which way, but when you think of what happened to those two MPs, you can't go around saying, whether you hate somebody or not, I think I would prefer to shoot them. It just doesn't happen. What happens, though, with Sunak is, because he's deemed, I think, a bit of a dither, and I know, after Bojo, who would jump before he even thought about it, he's surrounding himself with these problems, Charlie, that won't go away. Freddie said earlier, Freddie from The Spectator said, Freddie Gray, probably the reason that he was a little bit reticent was because he knew that the £10 million donation would come up. But it was going to come up anyway. And it just, to me, is another mess.
Yeah, well,
through his incompetence.
Well, and I think, look, we could have heard from anybody yesterday. We could have heard from the party chairman. We heard from other sort of cabinet ministers. But Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, might have thought, OK, the terrible comments, but I've got a job to do today. But you're absolutely right. Look, whatever the problems in this country, Diane Abbott is not the solution.
No.
She herself has lost the Labour Parliamentary Party whip because of comments that she's made in the past. So,
absolutely.
In relation to anti-Semitism.
Let's make that point quite right, Nick.
Exactly so, but that absolutely does not justify in any way, shape or form the comments that have been made against her for precisely the reasons that you were just saying, Jeremy, because two MPs have died, lost their lives because of violence. And
why can't Sunak, in his core, on his own, in his room yesterday, go, I'm calling this is unacceptable. For me, he waits for focus groups, he sends out these cabinet ministers, and by the day, he looks out of his depth. I genuinely believe that.
I think it is also genuinely because he fears losing a certain demographic who would not think that these comments were racist and might not want to vote for him and might vote for other parties because he'd come out and called these things racist. Unfortunately, I think that's a sad indictment of the society that we live in. But Victoria, another leader has come out and condemned these comments even further, Humza Yousaf, saying that actually not only were they racist, but they were inciting violence.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Diane Abbott herself commented yesterday and she said that she felt frightened. She said that she was alarmed by the comments and she said she already felt insecure walking home in her constituency in Hackney as a single woman. And obviously, as Charlie's been saying, there's been a lot of talk recently about violence against MPs, about safety of MPs. It was something that, you know, at the beginning of this month, Rishi Sunak came out and stood outside Downing Street and talked about extremism. And he said, you know, he condemned hatred and he even mentioned the fact that MPs feel unsafe in their own homes. And then to have this row come up and take over the Tory party this week, in a week that they wanted to start by talking about extremism, they wanted to have the narrative themselves. It is a big problem for the Tory party.
They still haven't condemned Lee Anderson's comments, have they, as being Islamophobic?
It's not their problem anymore, is it?
Well, it is their problem because he was given the position of deputy chairman with them knowing the kind of views.
I meant that flippantly, but I just...
But they still haven't condemned that as being Islamophobic. They've said it's wrong, but they've not specified why it's wrong.
Yes, and I think that Suella Braverman had a piece in the Telegraph, I think, a week before to talk about similar issues and whether or not Lee Anderson was right in what he said. I mean, he was wrong. He was factually wrong. But there was a sentiment there about the control of the...
Clumsy, but I think there is a debate to be had. But you cannot, when you look at MPs who are under... Look, I don't rate any of them, frankly. I think as the days go by. But you can't be saying things. Can we move it on to something that if you manage... I'm just putting this out there. If you manage to put a spin on this to me and put a smile on my face, I'll buy you a house.
A small house.
Rwanda has to be the worst thing. I don't care what anybody says. It is not a deterrent. It's not going to work. It's cost a lot of money. The biggest problem that we have is 170,000 migrants, whether they are asylum seekers or people aiming to take the mickey. We have no processing. It's a joke. Today, Charlie Rowley, failed asylum seekers, this from your government, will be offered thousands of pounds, to encourage them to move to Rwanda. I would respectfully suggest that would not act as a deterrent, but there will be people who were thinking they might come here and get in who will now go, well, I'll have a go, and if I don't get in and I don't get a hotel, I'm going to get £3,000, which is 6 months' money in Rwanda. That's an absolute joke, man.
Well, we'll need to see the detail of it because I haven't got that report. But
not getting a house,
I'm sure maybe a bungalow I might be moving into at the minute, or a small studio flat. But this
front of the Times.
I'm very happy to have a quick flick through. But I think the Rwanda scheme itself, I think, still has a place and still has a part to play in deterring people to come to this country, because it will be, known that if you come into this country illegally and you are deported to Rwanda, that is something that will stop the pull factor. We haven't seen that policy off the ground, if I could put it like that, at the moment. But I do think one of the things that the Prime Minister needs to do and the government needs to do is get that policy going in order to ensure that, A, it says it's doing what it says it's going to do, or says that it was doing what it says that it's always going to do. It tackles one of the biggest issues that people in this country care about, and that is illegal migration.
I don't think anybody has a plan. I don't believe that we...
Well, Labour have said that they would support a processing centre in France. As Ava was saying earlier, that would mean that people wouldn't have to cross the Channel and make those dangerous journeys. People wouldn't.
But even that, mate, I'm like, why should we have a processing system in France? Why are we giving
Well, it happens when we want to go to Australia. We would apply for a visa here.
Why have we given them £500 million a year? What could that money have done in this country? I just find it a national disgrace, Vic. I know yours is a reporting, not a commentary, Robert. I find it a national disgrace that various governments, and over however many years, cannot work this out. All I hear is, the Home Office is not fit for purpose, with this, with that, they're all illegal, some of them are refugees. It's a stain, isn't it?
Well, I think that, look, Rishi Sunak and the Conservative Party are under pressure to deliver those 5 priorities that they have promised to people, so they need to deliver something to show for it at the end of the day. And this scheme, they're saying that at the end of the day it will cost taxpayers far less to pay this £3,000.
He wants one person on one plane before the election, doesn't he?
Exactly. He's committed to getting those flights off the ground by spring, so he's under a lot of pressure to deliver that for voters, especially as we head towards a general election. We don't know when that's going to be, but he has to have something to show for it. And, of course, with everything going on, the race row that we've just talked about, Lee Anderson's defection, this is potentially, a push for the government moment for the Conservative Party to put something forward that they are doing rather than something that they are not doing.
The question just over the £3,000 is just, one which I think, yes, on the surface it is quite alarming, and yes, people will ask, well, why on earth are we giving people money just to sort of go back to their country of origin? The question is, if they had an asylum case to stay in this country, the cost of housing, accommodation, of cost of care, and all the other things that would be attached, is it not better just to obviously give up to £3,000 to an individual to return them to their country of origin, where you don't have a current sort of return scheme in place?
People will be doing that anyway. This is for people who've had their
These are ones who've been turned down. AN1, we managed it with Albania. We were talking about JK Live 2 years ago. There were more male Albanian prisoners in our prisons than any other foreign... It's true, isn't this? They made an agreement with the Albanians. They go back. AN1, our government, whatever its political persuasion, should have had far more agreements with other countries. You will not convince me or millions of people in this country that if you are an illegal immigrant, you should either be in a hotel or be in this country or go to Rwanda. You should go back to your damn country. It's an absolute... Sorry, I can't... You haven't won a bungalow. You haven't even got a caravan.
Oh.
Hopeless. A tent. You're done. Go to Calais.
Can I pop over to yours for tea, at least?
Yes, of course you can, yes.
There we go. Thank you so much to Victoria Innes and former Conservative advisor Charlie Rowley.